This morning we are sitting down with Mr. Michael Liebman from IPQ Analytics. And I would love for you to, first of all, thank you for being here with the Pretty Moody community. And I would love for you to just briefly introduce yourself to the Pretty Moody community, let them know what you do and why you do what you do.
Sure. So, as Sherelle said, I'm Michael Liebman. I'm managing director, co-founder of IPQ Analytics, which is actually based in Kennett Square. And my background is I have a PhD in theoretical chemistry, and I do modeling of diseases and conditions and computer modeling. And I have a mixed background of academics and pharma, and more recently and more directly applicable, I was the executive director of a breast cancer center for the U.S. Department of Defense, jointly with Walter Reed, out of the Winber Research Institute in Winber, Pennsylvania. And while we were very comprehensive, working from surgery, pathology, tissue banking, genomics, proteomics, and modeling and informatics, one of the things that was striking was that although there was a lot of talk at the time about how genomics and genetics were so hot as a topic for breast cancer risk, the reality when we would look at this, and I model systems, not just simple things, but look at complex systems, was that in reality, things like BRCA1, which everyone has heard about, is really only necessarily responsible for about 10% of all breast cancers. The real trigger for breast cancer tends to be menopausal status. So most breast cancers, almost 90% of them, are postmenopausal. Now, that may be a different type of breast cancer than the genetic based breast cancer. And it doesn't say that genes are not involved in breast cancer risk. It's just saying that menopausal status becomes a very important factor. And as I started to look into that, I became more and more aware of how little we really understood about that. And yet it's extremely significant. We know that in the population, we have about 51% women in the general population, which gives us about 160 million women just in the US, and that just over half of those women are age 40 or above, which means that they're likely to be perimenopausal, menopausal, or postmenopausal. And we also know that given the lifespan, expected lifespan of a woman, which is around 80 years at this time on average, that starting perimenopause around age 40, which is fairly normal, half a woman's life is spent either perimenopausal or menopausal or postmenopausal. So it's a significant component of a woman's life that's not really well understood. And most gynecologists are not necessarily adequately trained in medical school to really deal with that, besides the fact that as a process of normal development, this is going to change almost day by day in some women. And the ability to understand those changes and capture the critical data is not something that an annual visit with your gynecologist, if you have that, is going to be able to actually collect that data and interpret it at a personal level or even a population level. So that's part of what initiated my interest. And over the years, sort of kept it at a low boil under the surface until I had the opportunity to meet with Sherelle and realized that this could provide a means for actually looking at this in detail, in a detail that hasn't been done before. And that's really the basis of what we're trying to do now.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all of that. There was no way I was going to be able to get that introduction right with all your many accolades and contributions. Thank you for everything that you've done and that you're doing. I was so excited for us to be introduced. Number one, to be able to talk to a man that understands menopause is so rare. So the conversation that we had initially was just so enlightening. And then the other thing I wanted to know from you is why. I know you just explained and unraveled, about the research that we're working on and that you've been doing, but why was menopause such a piqued interest, for you?
Well, again, as someone who looks at systems, complex systems, I can imagine that a woman going through perimenopause, which on average may take the period of time between age 40 and 50 for the average woman, not every
Yes.
woman, it's going to set a background in a normal process that's going to affect every other disease or condition that she has during that time
Absolutely.
period. And yet, it's probably very rarely integrated into care planning and decision making in clinic. On top of that, anecdotally speaking with women in that age group, what you find is that women are sort of forced to try to get information from one another rather than be able to have a fully evidence-based resource that can provide to the gynecologist a better understanding and background for decision making other than symptom treatment. And so
Yes.
these are the kinds of things that we look at because we're looking not just at breast cancer and menopause, we look at many other diseases, and we see that this has a potential for significant influence, but one that we have discounted for now, and that women, as a result, are going through something that they don't have adequate guidance about. And the opportunity is there to enhance that information, give take back some of the curtain, so to speak, so that
Hmm.
they can understand what is normal and what is not normal, and then manage that appropriately. So when you have some symptom, is that symptom something that you would expect, and you just wait to see how it basically resolves? Or is it something you need to go to a specialist for because it's a condition that's not normal? And
Right.
we don't have that kind of basis. And yet it's critical for improving care, even just during the perimenopausal period, if not also beyond that.
You're absolutely right. Thank you for that. Um, it 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 is so critical. We are like really like walking around with blinders on, some of us just trying to find our way on a menopause journey. So that will definitely help us being able to have the data that we're trying to collect on the survey that we're going to talk about later that we're working on. But just being able to understand where you are and what's going on with your body is all we need at this moment, because that's the thing, we just don't even understand, we don't know what's what. And you talked about the gynecologist visit, the annual visit, that you're only in a room for about 15 minutes with the doctor, so to your point, what could they possibly come in and learn and really talk about in 15 minutes? And they haven't been educated during their studies on menopause. I know now there's a lot more talk and there's a lot more things being offered to physicians, but we need those spaces to be filled. Um, so that we can get the better understanding. And especially as it pertains to disparities in menopause.
Mhm.
I want to speak to that a little bit. We know that minority women and women of color are affected more in menopause than any other ethnicity. Do you know like why that is factually, and what's your opinion about it as well?
Well, we don't know factually because we haven't really done the studies adequately. Um, what we do know is women of color seem to enter perimenopause a bit earlier than other women. And we don't know if that has a biologic origin or it has an origin because of access to care or other kinds of influences. That's the kind of thing we hope to get some insight on in the survey that we're going to do.
Yes. Again, something that is very much needed. What do you feel is missing in the research and science that surrounds menopause and women, like right now where we stand with it?
Well, it's true of almost any disease that we study, and that is we tend to look at disease as a state, not as a process that evolves over time. And therefore, you can consider it looking at a line that is represents how things change over time, but only having a point. And we know mathematically, if you have a point, you can draw many, many different lines through that point, and they all are correct because they go through that point, but they're very, very different. And we don't know how many lines represent the way women go through menopause, just as we don't know for many diseases, complex diseases, anything from multiple sclerosis to type 2 diabetes, any of these diseases that we talk about really have many lines, and we don't know what those lines are. But if we can start to identify them, then we can identify better what to expect and how to manage it. And whether it's management by addressing symptoms, just information so that people are more comfortable knowing what to expect, all of these things can contribute to better overall care and quality of life. And
Yes.
so
And
that's really what we're looking at. So it's temporal data, which isn't well collected,
mhm,
and the need to understand that the temporal nature of how someone progresses, whether it's developmentally or through a disease, is all about a process and
right.
not just a state.
That's right. And there's a lot of misdiagnosis in menopause because of the lack thereof.
Right.
We have women that are being diagnosed with all types of severe depressions and multiple sclerosis. And I mean, the list goes on and on. And
Hmm.
it's all related to, not having the data that we need to appropriately compartmentalize these things that are happening to us.
Right.
So I am again I'm so excited for us to be doing this work that we're doing because I know for sure that it's going to make a difference. It's just really like being able for somebody to almost give you a map to
Hmm.
say, okay, here you are, and interactively, these are the things that are going to happen. These are things that you may see, and you being able to place yourself on that map and know where you stand is everything. I
Yeah.
know for me, I entered into menopause surgically. So everything just kind of came from every direction all at once. And you feel like you're in a whirlwind. And there's no education and there's no resources. And well, now I can't say there's not any because today we are 4 years later from COVID. When I entered, we're so much further along than we were even then, just in the conversation arena. But
Hmm.
we need these tools in place, and so it can help us, have a better journey, better understand, and have a better quality of life and maybe live a little bit longer.
Mhm.
That would be great if we can get some of that out of there.
Well,
Um,
and realistically, just so that we understand um, the process, what we're trying to do is what I differentiate in research, the difference between looking for p-values, which shows pure statistical significance, as you do in a clinical trial, versus doing discovery. And what we'd like to be able to do is discover certain things about the complexity of perimenopause and menopause, which can then lead to setting up formal studies where we can validate hypotheses and so on. But we need to have some basis to start that, not try to start doing that from the beginning. Because one of the things that I think we may miss is we have a set of symptoms that we think are very common in perimenopause or menopause.
mhm.
But that doesn't mean that that's a complete list.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's all the things that are being impacted.
That's right.
And if we only ask questions about those factors, we're not going to understand the true complexity of what an individual is going through
Right.
when it actually may have started that they didn't recognize. And that will hamper our ability to really initiate the right kind of study and research.
Exactly. So that on the long end, everything is good.
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to talk about the future of science because we're talking about like the survey that we're doing and, implementing things from the beginning so that we can get what we need on the back end of things in the most effective, efficient way,
Mhm.
and as accurate as possible because there are so many symptoms. There are so many um, things that women are going through that they don't realize is menopause.
Mhm.
So it is hard for them to identify when you just spoke to, well, how long have I been going through this? When did I initially started having these feelings? Most times we're already having the feelings, experiencing the things, and we can't even put our thumb on, when it started, because
Mhm.
by the time we realize that it's what we're going through, we've been in it for so long.
Right.
Um, where do you where do you feel like the future of science is going with outside of what we're trying to do specifically, but science in general with menopause and woman in menopause in the future, like in the near
Well,
future?
there's a lot of application of technology and development of technology. Looking at um, hot flashes, looking at certain signals that can be picked up, certain hormonal changes. But again, the need is to understand also how a woman is perceiving these things, and not again just the things that we already know are related and observations that women are experiencing, but are there other things that we've missed, we haven't
Right,
thought about, and how early might they actually be occurring, and how early are maybe critical events happening in a woman's normal development that may give us some indication of what's going to happen later on. In other words, even going back and looking at menarche and understanding how a woman went through menarche, because obviously it is related.
that's
The
right.
question is there information there that we just haven't tried to associate with the later developmental stages, knowing that there's going to be impact of environmental factors and
Right, right,
exposures and lifestyle and diet and social determinants of health and cultural determinants. So there's not a simple one-to-one correlation,
right.
but there is a need to start looking much earlier to collect that data.
Oh, I agree with you 1000%. I think that it will be almost asinine not to go back to menarche to, start the journey. I mean, that's where, honestly, that's where our journey actually began,
Right.
young girls, going onto their journey into womanhood. So it's uber important that, we recognize that we have to start there.
Well,
There's,
actually, to be honest with you, we do one of our main areas of research is in infant and maternal morbidity and mortality, and looking at pregnancy and development very early on, especially in underserved populations and with disparities. We think we may eventually have to go back that far,
wow,
but that's not going to be where we can start. And it would just complicate things and make it too difficult because we don't have access to that kind of information. And an
yeah,
individual isn't going to have access to that kind of information. So
yeah.
we will start in a place where we know women do have that kind of information, and we can trust more the data that we would collect at that point.
Yes, yes. Oh, this is a lot of great information. Thank you. I know the women are that are watching are loving every second of this, not going to, are loving. I wanted to go back really quickly and speak to breast cancer and menopause.
Mhm.
I have a lot of women that I come across that I'm connected to even in my community, at work that have been affected by breast cancer, and several with breast cancer and menopause. And a lot of times, they don't understand the connection. Um, and their doctor doesn't understand the connection to explain it, to them. So by the time I'm talking to them, they're just saying that, hey, I'm having hot flashes. I don't know why. And they're like, no, I'm not in menopause, but I had breast cancer. Um, and the connection that is there has just not, it hasn't resonated, you know?
Mhm.
I don't know if I don't know where it is in the research, honestly, where the disconnect is with that. But do you see in the future a connection really being made with menopause and breast cancer?
Yeah, but I think first what we have to recognize is we use the term breast cancer, but it really represents a whole set of diseases, not one disease. And some of them may be much more closely related to menopausal transitions than other ones. Some of them may be related to things like BRCA1, which is a mutation that doesn't guarantee breast cancer, but increases the risk for breast cancer.
Mhm.
And that's independent of menopausal status. So it's a much more complex question to understand breast cancer in general versus menopause. But it's easy to understand that there is going to be a relationship because of the influence and the interaction with hormones, hormonal changes, and that the period of perimenopause and menopause are significant transition periods in terms of hormone changes and so on. And so it's clear that there should be a functional relationship, but we need to do more research to really be able to understand that better. And some of the research isn't necessarily going to be right now at the molecular level because we
Yeah.
really need to stratify breast cancer better on symptomology and then link it to things like stratified how women go through perimenopause and menopause differently, but maybe not at a n of one level, but n of 100 or n of 500 level.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that answer. Um, I have one last question, and then we can go into summarizing this amazing survey that we're going to be offering the ladies.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to know through your research, what are some of the most important factors that you would say menopausal women should be aware of in their health?
Well, there's no question about the influence of diet and exercise.
Mhm.
And then as being something that's within your control. Also, other habits like smoking and alcohol tend to show increased risk, but these are correlative factors, not causal factors.
Mhm.
So causality is very difficult and a challenge in a lot of research. It's something we're trying to drive towards, but not something that is going to be an easy barrier to overcome. It's much easier to look for statistical correlations, but statistical correlations are not causality. And as a result, they can point in a general direction, but not the specific direction of what you should do and why you should do it and how to take advantage of that. So, in terms of correlation, again, at a high level, improved diet, improved exercise, reduction of stress, avoidance of overindulgence of certain factors like alcohol and smoking, of course, we know have a positive effect, but we don't necessarily know why they all have a positive effect.
Right, right. And I think that's the key. And most spaces where we are in this menopausal world right now is that we know that these things are happening. We know they could happen, but we don't know the why behind them. And that's what we're trying to unpack and
Right.
get to so that we can again have a better menopausal experience. We spend a long time in menopause as women, as you mentioned earlier. Some women even start, in their 30s, and you can start even before, depending on, what your situation is. So to spend like more than half your life living in this space, it would be great if you can, have a great experience,
Mhm.
while you're there. So I want to
At
just
least a
flow
better
right.
experience.
Yes, but yes, that's the goal.
I
Because
won't
I'm telling
promise
you,
great. I can promise better.
better. Well, we'll definitely take better for sure. Has to be better than what it is right now. So, so I want to talk a little bit about the survey. We've been mentioning it, throughout the conversation, but you want to go ahead and start and talk about why we're doing this amazing survey, what it's going to entail, and the results that we're trying to get from
Yeah.
this survey.
So what we're trying to do is I'm trying to use the survey as sort of a translation mechanism for women to be able to download, so to speak, things that they've experienced that they can exchange and provide information on that they're not going to accomplish in a 15-minute gynecologic uh, appointment once a year. And again, we want to look at the development of these processes, how they've been occurring over time. And as an example, we can list, and we do list, the common symptoms that we know about.
Mhm.
But what's important is not to know, do you have these symptoms alone? It's to know, when did they happen? In what order did they happen? And which ones occurred together? Because that's going to differentiate how women are going through these transitions. And
Yes.
so that's part of the information we're trying to capture. Now, we know it's not perfect information. It's going to depend on a woman's recall. And so there's going to be noise in this, which is why I said before, it's a process of evaluation. We want to collect the best data we can and then take that data, refine the questions, and maybe go back to these women with better questions or expand the collection cohort, so to speak, but make it open and accessible so that women can effectively, through this mechanism, which will remain anonymous to the extent they will want it to be anonymous, they will be able to actually provide and comment on what they've experienced. Again, not just have you had hot flashes,
Right.
but have they affected your work? And when did they start? And when you were having hot flashes, did you also have other kinds of things like headaches? Are they, because that may be very different and
That's
experienced
right.
differently in different women. And we want to get an idea because we don't really have that data
That's
of how
right.
different these things are.
That's right. That's right. I'm excited about this. Um, Anything that I can do to help women like myself, the women that the young girls that are coming behind us, the women that are coming behind me into their menopause journeys. Um, that is what I'm so super passionate about, just being able to provide some type of education and help and resources. And partnering with you has been amazing. I myself am learning so much from you. I don't know if you know it. You send all these amazing, articles and information, and I've become way more educated, working with you in this short period of time. I think we started working together in late summer,
Mhm.
and it's been amazing. And I cannot wait to see, how things unfold. And more importantly, I cannot wait to see the survey come, to pass, and then to be able to eventually see, the results from it. Like I'm so excited about that. And I know what it's going to do for the woman. I know that it's going to help. So I'm going to say to all of you women that's out there watching, that are in menopause, that are not in menopause, make sure you share this with women in your family, your friends, your coworkers, because we need everybody to be involved with this survey when it come out, especially Black women and women of color, minorities. And we need anybody and everybody to come out and be a part, because the proof is going to be in the numbers, right? We need the data to be collected so that we can, have better experiences, better, not great,
Yeah,
better.
we're not trying to take away from women asking other women what they experienced,
Right.
trying to put some scientific rigor in knowing what to ask and
Yeah,
what it actually translates to so that everyone's better informed and can make a much better decision about
that's
how
right.
to live.
That's right. We talk to a lot of women on the Connect and Release that I do twice a month. And a lot of the women that come on, they really have like no clue. They're just like, I saw something that you posted and I was like, that was me. And honestly, for a lot of us, that's the extent, of the education. Like you said, we're talking to each other, but we don't even know what we're talking to each other about,
Mhm.
So this survey, again, is going to, like Mr. Liebman just said, it's going to bring some clarity, and it's going to give us some direction. And we need that. So I want to say thank you for being here, bringing your expertise to the Pretty Moody platform. This is the first but not the last that they will see of you. We're doing an event at the Chase Center on March 23rd at 4 p.m. So keep your eyes open, because information will be coming out about that soon. And it is titled Bridging the Gap Between Science and Menopause. And that's what we're trying to be successful at on this journey right now. So
And
thank
it's
you.
going to be an opportunity for women to ask questions and share their experiences
Yes, for
and
sure.
just have an open discussion and also discuss myths about menopause as well.
You're right. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, there will be a live Q&A and we will be debunking those myths and just congregating with one another and being able to you can ask your questions and get your right answers
And
instead of
I won't guarantee I'll have the answers to all the questions, but I can guarantee that I'll go try to find the answers to the questions so that we get the right answers.
That's right. That's right. And that's what we do. We want to put out accurate information and, just be a vessel to help. So again, save the date, March 23rd, the Chase Center, Bridging the Gap Between Science and Menopause. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have an amazing moderator, Patty Jackson from WDAS-FM. It's going to be a good day. So I'm thinking we're going to do what, from 4 to 6, but leave room for questions and things. It's going to be great. So we hope to see you all there. Thank you so much for joining me today, for coming on. I'm excited. I'm just so. I know I've said excited probably 100 times during this video, but I'm so excited for this because I know what it's going to mean for us. So again, I thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for working with me.
And thank you for providing the opportunity.
Yes, thanks so much. Well, we will talk soon.